Blood on marble steps, a federal judge's credentials scattered like fallen leaves, and the man who struck her had no idea he'd just signed his own death warrant, along with dozens of others who thought themselves untouchable. The metallic taste filled Elena Castellano's mouth as she lay sprawled across the courthouse entrance, her briefcase contents swirling in the morning wind. Officer Derek Walsh stood above her, his face contorted with contempt, the morning sun catching badge number 3691. His hand had just connected with her face hard enough to snap her head sideways. "People like you," Walsh snarled, his voice carrying across the plaza, "don't belong here." Elena had survived 20 years in naval intelligence and another 15 on the federal bench. This wasn't her first encounter with violence, but it was certainly the most brazen. From her position on the cold stone, she could see the bronze nameplate on the courthouse facade, the Honorable Judge E. Castellano, Federal District Court. The irony wasn't lost on her. Walsh yanked her to her feet, handcuffs biting into her wrists with unnecessary force. Two other officers, Rodriguez and Miller, watched with expressions ranging from amusement to discomfort. Rodriguez even had his phone out recording. "You're being detained for trespassing," Walsh announced loudly, playing to the gathering crowd. Elena remained silent, her trained mind already cataloguing everything. The security camera angles, the time on the clock tower, 8:47 a.m., the witnesses, the exact position of every piece of scattered evidence, including one document bearing the header Operation Firebird with an official FBI watermark. Elena hadn't always been addressed as Your Honor. In 1985, she'd been fresh out of Annapolis, standing in dress whites as President Reagan spoke of morning in America. Her father, Police Chief Antonio Castellano, had taught her that justice wasn't feelings, it was actions. Those lessons had carried her through the Gulf War, through Harvard Law, through her appointment to the bench, and through the suspicions about her husband Michael's death 2 years ago. Officially, Michael Castellano had died when his car's brakes failed, but Michael had been Walsh's partner before leaving the force for private practice. In the weeks before his death, Michael had been troubled, withdrawn. Elena found his notebook afterward. Names, dates, and the cryptic phrase, "Firebird rising from ashes." 4 months later, FBI agent Julian Brooks showed her files detailing systematic police corruption, protection for drug traffickers, evidence tampering, money laundering. Operation Firebird. At the center, Walsh, Commissioner Bennett, and shockingly, Chief Justice Raymond Ashford of the state Supreme Court. For 6 months, Elena had gathered evidence using her judicial access. This morning, she'd been 50 yards from meeting Brooks with the final pieces when Walsh intercepted her. Coincidence? Or had someone warned him? As Walsh shoved her into the patrol car, Elena glimpsed her briefcase still lying abandoned on the courthouse steps. Judge Robert Kensington adjusted the rearview mirror of his pristine 1967 Mustang, its green paint gleaming. At 78, retired 5 years, he still maintained his courthouse office as special counsel. Elena was supposed to meet him at 9:15 for coffee. In 20 years, she'd never been late. His office phone was ringing when he entered. "Judge Kensington, this is Officer Miller from detention. A woman asked me to tell you the Eagle is grounded, Firebird rising, recall Overlord." Kensington went still. It was their emergency code. Elena had been detained. "Who brought her in?" "Officer Walsh, sir." Kensington opened his desk drawer, retrieving an envelope containing a federal order signed by the Supreme Court Chief Justice authorizing investigation of any detention of Judge Castellano as a matter of national security. He'd called in 50 years of favors for that signature. He dialed Brooks immediately. "The Eagle is grounded. Walsh has her." "The briefcase?" "Likely compromised. I have duplicates of the crucial evidence. Meet me at the courthouse in 15 minutes, east entrance. And Brooks, bring everything." Walsh sat at his desk, examining Elena's confidential files with gloved hands. Behind him hung 3 photographs: his father in uniform, his own academy graduation, and his wedding photo, his wife Emily, who'd been murdered 6 years ago in a robbery. The killer had walked on a technicality. That had been Walsh's first step into the shadows, looking the other way for certain shipments, ensuring patrol routes avoided particular neighborhoods. The money had been secondary to the power to decide who received justice. The documents before him now threatened everything. This federal judge had connected dots that should have remained separate, linked Firebird to Commissioner Bennett, to Judge Whitmore, even to members of the city council. His radio crackled. "Walsh, our guest is demanding a phone call. Tell her phone privileges are at my discretion." But Captain Harris burst in moments later, his face grave. "The commissioner just got a call from the Supreme Court Chief Justice demanding to know why a federal judge has been detained." Walsh's blood ran cold. "The woman you arrested is Judge Elena Castellano, federal judge for the Eastern District, and Judge Kensington is downstairs right now with an FBI agent threatening federal obstruction charges against everyone involved." Kensington, the legendary prosecutor who'd sent 3 commissioners to federal prison in the 1970s. Walsh's phone buzzed. Firebird compromised. Burn everything. Warehouse tonight, 8 p.m. He reached for his father's Colt .45, drawing comfort from the worn grip. He still had options. The judge was in his custody. The evidence was in his hands. Power made the rules, and he still had power. In holding cell 3, Elena sat perfectly straight, cataloguing her surroundings. 2 other women shared the cell. The younger one, Denise, spoke first. "Walsh brought you in, didn't he?" Elena nodded slightly. "Everyone on the east side knows Walsh," Denise said bitterly. "Plants evidence, works with the Ramos crew on drug shipments. Offered to lose evidence against my brother for $10,000. We couldn't pay, so my brother's doing 5 years while Walsh drives a new Corvette." Eleanor filed this information away. The older woman stirred, focusing on Eleanor with recognition. "I know you. You're the judge who gave my son Tommy a second chance last year. Sent him to the veterans program instead of jail. He's clean now, working at the VA." Before Elena could respond, Officer Miller appeared. "Castellano, you have a visitor." In the interview room, Judge Kensington sat with Agent Brooks beside him. "Officer Miller," Kensington said, his voice carrying decades of authority, "you've made a catastrophic error. This," he withdrew the Supreme Court order, "is an emergency directive demanding Judge Castellano's immediate release." Miller paled, fumbling to remove Elena's handcuffs before backing out. "They have my briefcase," Elena said immediately. "All the Firebird files." "Not all." Kensington produced duplicates. "You were smart to leave these with me." "The flash drive?" Brooks asked. Elena touched her father's vintage Timex watch. "Still here?" "In the watch casing." Brooks smiled. "Old school." "What's our next move?" Elena asked. Kensington's eyes gleamed. "They've scheduled an arraignment in 30 minutes. Judge Whitmore presiding." "Whitmore is compromised," Eleanor said. "He's been on Firebird payroll for 3 years." "Exactly. They're rushing this through, trying to damage your credibility before we can intervene. But they don't know we have the Chief Justice's order, so we let them proceed, then turn it on them." Courtroom 3 was packed when Elena entered. Word had spread. A woman claiming to be a federal judge had been arrested. In the gallery sat Chief Justice Raymond Ashford, Elena's former mentor, his silver hair immaculate, his face a mask of cold fury. Commissioner Bennett sat beside him in full uniform. Judge Preston Whitmore entered, adjusting his robes with practiced precision. At 55, silver-haired and camera-ready, he'd been Walsh's college roommate. "All rise," the bailiff called. As Whitmore settled at the bench, District Attorney Sandra Wallace stood, Your Honor, the city brings charges of trespassing, possession of falsified documents, and resisting arrest. The courtroom door swung open. Kensington strode in, followed by Brooks in his dark FBI suit. Your Honor, Kensington said, his voice resonating, I request permission to approach on a matter of urgent judicial importance. Whitmore frowned. Judge Kensington, we're in the middle of an arraignment. Yes, Kensington replied, continuing forward, an arraignment that should never have been scheduled. He gestured to Elena. Allow me to introduce the defendant, Federal Judge Elena Castellano of the Eastern District, unlawfully detained while performing official duties. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Kensington handed the Supreme Court order to the bailiff. This is an emergency directive from the Chief Justice demanding Judge Castellano's immediate release. Whitmore's face paled as he read it. Elena spoke, her voice clear and commanding. Those documents, Your Honor, were evidence in a federal investigation into corruption within the city's police department and judiciary. Evidence unlawfully seized by Officer Walsh after he physically assaulted me on the courthouse steps. That's outrageous, Walsh interjected. Officer Walsh, Elena said calmly, I attempted to show you my credentials. You responded by striking me and calling me a person who doesn't belong here. All captured on courthouse security cameras and your own body camera. My body camera malfunction. Elena smiled coldly. Your department's cameras upload backup footage to the county cloud server every 60 seconds. Unless you disabled that function, itself a violation, the footage exists. Brooks stepped forward, displaying his FBI badge. Your Honor, I'm Special Agent Julian Brooks. I have a federal warrant authorizing search and seizure of evidence related to Operation Firebird, including materials unlawfully taken from Judge Castellano. Whitmore looked trapped. I need to review these documents in chambers. Court is in recess. As he fled, Elena noticed him pulling out his phone, fingers typing frantically. He was warning the others. In chambers, Brooks placed Elena's recovered briefcase on the table. Some pages are missing. The Cayman account records, the warehouse surveillance photos. Elena removed her watch, unscrewing the back to reveal a micro SD card. The missing evidence. My husband taught me to hide data in everyday objects. Brooks inserted the card into his tablet. The screen filled with financial records, surveillance photos, and a spreadsheet listing names and payment amounts. This is everything. Walsh, Rodriguez, Commissioner Bennett, Judge Whitmore, Chief Justice Ashford. Ashford signed off on Michael's accident report personally, Elena said quietly. He was covering their tracks. According to these files, Brooks confirmed gently, your husband discovered evidence linking Ashford to the Ramos organization 3 weeks before his death. The server we found contains photographs of Walsh tampering with Michael's car. Elena stared at the images, Walsh cutting the brake lines, checking his watch, walking away. 2 years of suspicion finally confirmed. We have them, Kensington said. All of them. Officer Miller knocked urgently. Judges, there's a situation. Chief Justice Ashford has convened an emergency session of the State Judicial Ethics Committee, attempting to issue an injunction against Judge Castellano's continued participation. Elena's jaw tightened. He's using state authority to override federal jurisdiction. Tell him I'll address his concerns when court reconvenes. When they returned to the courtroom, the tension had intensified. Ashford stood at the bench, red-faced and shouting, while Brooks and several marshals formed a protective barrier. This is an illegal proceeding, Ashford bellowed upon seeing Elena. Judge Castellano, you are suspended pending investigation. Chief Justice Ashford, Elena replied evenly, you have no authority to suspend a federal judge. Actually, Kensington interjected, stepping forward with quiet authority, this is a federal courthouse under United States District Court jurisdiction. Your authority here is ceremonial at best, Raymond. Bill Kensington, Ashford snarled. "I might have known you'd be involved in this coup attempt." Commissioner Bennett stepped forward, hand on his weapon. "Chief Justice, I have officers ready to restore order." Brooks moved between Bennett and Elena. "Commissioner, I strongly advise against interference with federal officers." Elena surveyed the standoff with tactical awareness. Ashford had overplayed his hand, revealing his panic. Now she would use it. "If everyone would be seated," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "This court is about to reconvene." She moved toward the bench. Ashford, momentarily taken aback, stepped aside. "All rise," the bailiff called with renewed confidence. "The United States District Court is now in session." The Honorable Judge Elena Castellano presiding. As the courtroom settled, Elena brought down the gavel with authority. "Before we proceed, I wish to address the irregular interruption. Chief Justice Ashford, while I appreciate your concern, this is a federal proceeding. Any issues regarding my conduct should be addressed through appropriate federal channels, not unscheduled interventions." Ashford's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. "Now," Elena continued, shifting attention to Walsh at the defendant's table in Prison Orange, "Mr. Eisen, is your client prepared to enter a plea?" Walsh's public defender stood uncertainly. "Your Honor, given the severity of charges and limited consultation time, we request a continuance. Under normal circumstances, I would grant such a request. However, given the attempted violence in this courtroom earlier and the clear flight risk, I'm inclined to proceed immediately." From the gallery, Ashford rose. "This is a mockery of due process." Elena's gaze snapped to him, cold and authoritative. "Chief Justice Ashford, you are out of order. This is your only warning before I hold you in contempt." The confrontation hung in the air. Ashford slowly retook his seat, publicly rebuked. Elena pressed a button. A screen descended, displaying high-definition courthouse security footage. The morning's events unfolded in crystal clarity. Elena approaching, Walsh intercepting her, her attempt to show identification, Walsh striking her without warning, documents scattering. The audio was equally clear. "People like you don't belong here." The slap, the handcuffs clicking. "Officer Walsh," Elena said, pausing the video, "does your client wish to enter a plea?" After a brief consultation with Walsh, whose face was a mask of rage, Eisen said, "Not guilty to all charges, Your Honor." So entered. Now, regarding bail, U.S. Attorney Caroline Matthews rose. "Your Honor, given the violent nature of these crimes, the defendant's law enforcement position, and his demonstrated willingness to use deadly force in this courtroom, the United States requests bail be denied." "Objection," Eisen protested. "Officer Walsh has an unblemished 20-year record." "Unblemished?" Elena interrupted. "Mr. Eisen, are you aware your client has been the subject of 47 civilian complaints, 17 involving excessive force?" Eisen faltered. "I was not provided." "Perhaps review your client's personnel file before making such claims. Additionally, the scope of investigation into your client's activities has expanded significantly based on new evidence." This hint at the larger Firebird investigation caused tension to ripple through the room. "In light of the serious charges, evidence of violence and flight risk, bail is denied. The defendant will remain in federal custody." The gavel came down with finality. As Eleanor stood to exit, the courtroom doors burst open. A woman in her early 40s entered, professional attire disheveled from rushing. Elena recognized her immediately. Rachel Walsh, Derek's sister, and a prominent defense attorney known for representing Ramos organization members. "Your Honor," Rachel called, "I'm taking over my brother's defense and demand this be declared a mistrial due to judicial conflict of interest." Elena met the attorney's challenging gaze. "Ms. Walsh, if you wish to replace Mr. Eisen, file appropriate paperwork with the clerk's office." "I've already filed it." and I've filed a motion for your immediate recusal on grounds that your personal involvement makes fair judgment impossible. Your motion is noted, Ms. Walsh. You'll have my ruling when court reconvenes." Elena exited, leaving Rachel standing in the courtroom center, motion papers clutched like a declaration of war. In chambers, Brooks was waiting. "The warehouse team is in position. 6 targets confirmed at Ashford's estate, including 3 Ramos lieutenants." "Time to accelerate," Elena decided. "Rachel Walsh's involvement confirms they're mobilizing full defense. We need to show the connections publicly. When court reconvenes, I'll deny her recusal motion, but voluntarily step aside for trial, bringing in Judge Catherine Ling from the Northern District." Kensington nodded approval. "Ling is unimpeachable, 20 years on the bench without a single reverse decision." Brooks's phone buzzed. "Warehouse team found something unexpected. A dedicated computer server with what appears to be complete parallel records for Operation Firebird. Financial records, blackmail materials, surveillance files." "Including records about Michael?" Eleanor asked quietly. Brooks nodded. "Preliminary reports suggest a folder with his name. After 2 years of uncertainty, concrete evidence was finally within reach." "There's more," Brooks continued. "They also found detailed plans for what they call Phase 2, expansion into 3 neighboring counties with recruits already positioned in their police departments and courthouses. This isn't just local corruption," Kensington realized. "They're building regional criminal infrastructure disguised as law enforcement." "We need to expand investigation scope immediately," Elena decided. "Contact U.S. attorneys in neighboring districts, but maintain operational security." A sharp knock came. The bailiff entered urgently. "Judge Castellano, Chief Justice Ashford has convened the State Judicial Ethics Committee. They're attempting to issue an injunction against your participation." "He can't seriously believe that will work," Elena said. "It's a delay tactic," Kensington observed. "Buying time to destroy evidence." Eleanor made a swift decision. "Tell Ashford I'll address his concerns when court reconvenes, and inform Ms. Walsh her recusal motion will be heard then as well." "How quickly can we move on Ashford's estate?" Elena asked Brooks. "Surveillance shows increased activity, vehicles arriving and departing. Looks like they're clearing out evidence. We need a warrant specifically for the estate." "Draft it immediately," Elena instructed. "I'll sign it before court reconvenes. We move simultaneously on the estate and on Ashford himself, in open court where his actions will be witnessed." Kensington raised an eyebrow. "You're going to arrest the Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court in his own courtroom?" "No," Elena corrected with grim determination. "I'm going to have federal agents arrest a murder conspirator who happens to hold that position. The distinction matters." Kensington nodded slowly, admiration in his eyes. "Antonio would be proud today. Very proud." Elena touched her father's watch. "I hope so, because what comes next will shake everything he believed in, but sometimes systems need shaking to be saved." Brooks's phone buzzed again. "Warehouse team confirms detailed ledger with payment records. Ashford's name appears multiple times, payments totaling over $3 million over 5 years. Prepare the warrant for Ashford's arrest," Elena instructed. "Charges of conspiracy, obstruction, and accessory to murder." When court reconvened, the gallery was packed. Chief Justice Ashford sat in the front row, Commissioner Bennett beside him in full uniform. Rachel Walsh stood at the defense table, designer suit perfect. Elena took the bench, surveying the scene with practiced calm. "Be seated. This court will now address several motions. Ms. Walsh has filed for my recusal on grounds of personal involvement and conflict of interest." She picked up the motion papers. "Chief Justice Ashford, I believe you wish to address a related matter." Ashford rose, his voice resonating. "Judge Castellano, the State Judicial Ethics Committee has determined you've overstepped authority and violated ethics by presiding over a case in which you're personally involved." "Chief Justice Ashford," Elena replied evenly, "state committees have no authority over federal judges. That jurisdiction lies solely with the Judicial Conference of the United States. Nevertheless, the appearance of impropriety is indeed a concern," Elena interrupted, "which is why I'm ruling on Ms. Walsh's motion. While I maintain my actions have been procedurally correct, I agree appearance of impartiality must be preserved." Rachel's expression shifted, surprise mixing with suspicion. "Therefore, I'm denying your motion for recusal for today's proceedings, limited to arraignment and bail. However, I'm voluntarily recusing myself from all subsequent trial proceedings. I have an order from the Chief Judge appointing Judge Catherine Ling of the Northern District to oversee all trial phases. Judge Ling has no connection to this jurisdiction and will ensure complete impartiality." Eleanor caught Kensington's approving nod. This strategic concession undermined Ashford's attack while preserving case integrity. "Now, before we proceed, there's another matter requiring immediate attention." She pressed her console button. The doors opened. 6 FBI agents entered, led by Brooks, spreading strategically around the room. "Chief Justice Raymond Ashford," Elena announced, her voice carrying full federal authority. "Based on evidence obtained during an ongoing federal investigation, I'm issuing a warrant for your arrest on charges of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, bribery, and accessory to murder." The courtroom erupted. Ashford's face drained of color. "This is outrageous. You have no authority." "The authority comes from the United States District Court," Elena interrupted, "based on substantial evidence linking you to a criminal enterprise known as Operation Firebird." Brooks approached with handcuffs. "Raymond Ashford, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent." As Brooks recited Miranda rights, Ashford's composure shattered. "This is a coup! Bennett, do something!" The commissioner moved toward his weapon before freezing at the sight of multiple agents with hands positioned near their sidearms. "Commissioner Bennett," Elena said calmly, "I advise against interfering with federal officers, particularly as you're also named in federal warrants being executed at this moment." Bennett's hand dropped, his face ashen. "Additionally," Elena continued, addressing the stunned courtroom, "federal agents are executing search warrants at 17 locations throughout the city, including Chief Justice Ashford's residence, Commissioner Bennett's office, and a warehouse facility connected to Operation Firebird." She fixed her gaze on Ashford, now in handcuffs. "Evidence being seized includes detailed records of financial transactions, surveillance operations, and communications related to the murder of Assistant District Attorney Michael Castellano 2 years ago." A murmur ran through the courtroom at this revelation. "Your Honor," Rachel Walsh interjected, legal training reasserting through shock, "I move these proceedings be halted pending Circuit Court review." "Ms. Walsh, your concerns are noted. However, warrants have been reviewed and approved at the highest levels. Chief Justice Ashford will receive all due process rights." She turned back to the gallery. "This court stands in recess until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., when Judge Catherine Ling will preside over arraignments of all defendants." The gavel's sharp crack echoed through the stunned courtroom. As Elena rose, she caught Ashford's eyes. The man who'd mentored her through law school, attended her investiture, organized the cover-up of her husband's murder. "You've made a grave mistake, Elena," Ashford hissed. "The system protects its own." Elena paused, meeting his gaze directly. "That's where you're wrong, Raymond. The system doesn't protect criminals. It exposes them. That's what my father taught me, and what I intend to prove, no matter who falls." 6 months passed. Elena stood at her chamber's window, gazing at the courthouse plaza where half a year earlier Walsh had struck her down. Spring sunshine illuminated the scene differently now, shadows less ominous, light more hopeful. Behind her lay the morning's newspaper. Former Chief Justice Ashford sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. Judge Catherine Ling had presided with methodical precision. The evidence had been overwhelming. The jury deliberated only 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. A knock came. Judge Kensington entered, looking distinguished despite new lines on his weathered face. "Thought I might find you contemplative today," he said, settling into the visitor's chair. "Ashford's sentencing marks the end of an era." "The end of one era, the beginning of another," Elena replied, moving to join him. "The system survived, Robert. Despite everything they did to corrupt it, the foundation held." Kensington placed a folder on her desk, the final Operation Firebird report compiled for the Congressional Oversight Committee. "The final tally," he said. 47 law enforcement officers convicted, 9 judges, 12 prosecutors, 7 elected officials, the entire Ramos organization leadership. Elena opened the folder, scanning the breakdown. And the review of tainted cases. 432 convictions overturned, 117 people released from prison, some having served over a decade on fabricated charges. Elena closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the weight of this injustice. And Walsh? Life without parole at the federal supermax. No possibility of early release. She nodded, grim satisfaction settling over her. "The reform legislation passed yesterday," Kensington continued, shifting to hopeful news. "Mandatory body cameras with tamper-proof systems, civilian oversight boards with actual authority, transparency requirements for judicial financial disclosures." "And what about the international connections?" Elena asked. Kensington's expression brightened. "That's the most satisfying development. Evidence from your warehouse encounter with Rachel Walsh led to an unprecedented joint operation between FBI, Interpol, and financial intelligence units. Last month, they seized over 300 million in assets from accounts in Luxembourg and Switzerland." Elena felt vindication. So Rachel's interested parties didn't escape after all. "Not only that, but the pattern we uncovered helped identify similar networks in Boston and Atlanta. The Justice Department established a specialized task force modeled on our investigation. They're calling it Operation Firebreak, designed to prevent corruption from spreading between jurisdictions." "A fitting legacy for Michael's work," Elena said softly. "Which brings me to this," Kensington smiled. "The first chair of the new Federal Judicial Ethics Commission needs someone who understands both letter and spirit of judicial integrity." The appointment had come directly from the president, recognition of Elena's role in exposing the corruption and her commitment to judicial ethics. The commission would have oversight authority for federal judges nationwide. "I still have reservations," Elena admitted, moving to Washington, leaving the bench. "You'll have more impact there than in any single courtroom," Kensington countered. "The Firebird case exposed weaknesses extending far beyond this jurisdiction. The Commission is a chance to strengthen those vulnerabilities nationally." Elena knew he was right. The investigation had revealed corruption far more extensive than initially imagined. Similar patterns had emerged across multiple states, suggesting systemic vulnerability rather than isolated bad actors. "I'll give them my answer tomorrow," she decided. "Today belongs to reflection." Kensington withdrew an envelope from his pocket. This came from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Special delivery. Elena opened it, finding a photograph. Michael on his bar admission day, young and idealistic, his whole career ahead of him. "They found it in Ashford's personal files," Kensington explained quietly. "He kept trophies." "Agent Brooks thought you should have it." Eleanor studied her husband's image, feeling the familiar ache of loss, but now without accompanying frustration of injustice. Michael's killers had been exposed and convicted. His work had led to dismantling the entire corrupt network. There was closure now, if not complete healing. "Thank you," she said simply, placing the photograph in her desk drawer. "Have you decided about Judge Ling's offer?" Kensington asked. "To come out of retirement and serve as special advisor to the federal task force." He chuckled. "Not at my age. I told her I'd consider it if they let me bring my Mustang to Washington." Elena laughed. "And apparently they've already arranged climate-controlled garage space. They want experienced perspective, someone who remembers how the system is supposed to work." He glanced at his watch. "Speaking of which, we should head to the ceremony. They won't start without you, but it's poor form for the guest of honor to be late." The ceremony, official dedication of the courthouse's main hall as the Michael Castellano Memorial Justice Center. The plaque would recognize Michael's sacrifice and serve as permanent reminder of integrity's price in a system constantly under pressure. Outside, in spring sunshine, a small crowd had gathered. Reporters, courthouse staff, attorneys, and meaningfully, several exonerated individuals whose wrongful convictions had been overturned. Among them stood the woman from the holding cell, Mrs. Ramirez, beside her son, Tommy, now employed at the VA hospital helping other veterans. As Elena prepared to address the gathering, Kensington leaned close. "Antonio would be extraordinarily proud today, not just of what you accomplished, but how you accomplished it, by the book, with integrity, no matter the cost." Elena felt her father's watch on her wrist, the timepiece that had concealed crucial evidence and connected her to his enduring principles. "Justice isn't what you feel," she murmured, recalling his words. "It's what you do." And she had done it. Seen justice served not just for Michael, but for hundreds victimized by a corrupted system. The price had been high, the journey difficult, but the outcome validated every sacrifice. With renewed purpose, Eleanor stepped forward to address the crowd, ready to honor the past while building a more just future. Some battles would be won, others lost, but as long as people stood against corruption, people like her father, like Michael, like Kensington, and now like herself, the system would endure. Damaged perhaps, imperfect certainly, but resilient at its core. And in that knowledge, Elena Castellano found not only her peace, but her purpose.